My brother's daughter dumped a bucket of sand into the pizza oven during my son's birthday party on purpose. The caterer shut everything down, and 11 families left hungry. She smiled. Dad promised me a new e-bike if I killed the party. My brother smiled proudly. I said nothing, took my son home, and by morning, the caterer was at my brother's door holding one burned invoice and a 14-second video. The clay was still warm when Kai pressed his hand into it. I held his wrist steady, fingers spread, and counted to 5 before I lifted. His handprint sat clean in the center of the disc, slightly crooked, slightly too deep on the thumb side, and completely perfect. I set it on the kitchen counter to dry next to 7 little pizza paddles I had been sanding all week. 1 week until the party. 1 week until 7 candles, a wood-fired pizza oven at the Lakewood Park Pavilion, and every kid on the block eating mozzarella off a paddle they could take home. I had been planning this for 8 months. That is not an exaggeration. 8 months of comparing caterers, of saving from commission checks that sometimes cleared on the 12th and sometimes on the 22nd, of telling Kai every Saturday that his party would be the one everybody talked about. He believed me. He counted the days on a paper chain taped to his bedroom wall. Every morning he pulled 1 link off. By May 10, 7 links remained. My name is Simone Ashby. I am 34 years old, and I have worked as a commercial insurance underwriter at Meridian Risk Associates for 9 years. I assess risk for a living. I review claims, read endorsement forms, flag fraud referrals. What my brother did to my son's birthday party was not an accident. It was a calculated act with a financial motive I did not see until 3 days later. And when I saw it, every tool my profession ever gave me became the thing that ended him. Marco Vega arrived at the Lakewood Pavilion at 9 that Saturday morning. He backed his trailer up to the concrete pad and unloaded the oven first. Stainless steel and fire brick, portable, with a chimney stack that caught the May sun. A commercial wood-fired oven he had been using for 9 years, insured for replacement, maintained every season. He set it on the pad, leveled it with a rubber mallet and a spirit level, and started the fire at 9:30. By 10, the air under the pavilion roof smelled like oak smoke and fresh basil, and Kai was standing 3 feet from the oven, watching the flames curl inside the fire brick chamber. "How hot does it get?" Kai asked, his voice barely above the crackle. Marco crouched beside him, 600 degrees, hot enough to cook a pizza in 90 seconds. "Can I watch the whole time?" "You can watch every single one," Marco said. He looked at me over Kai's head and smiled. He understood the assignment. This was not just food. This was a 7-year-old who had never had a birthday party where he felt like the center of anything. 11 families showed up, 32 kids, give or take. Kai knew maybe half of them by name. He is quiet. He does not approach kids first. He waits until someone comes to him, and even then his voice drops and he looks at his shoes. The party was partly for him and partly for me. I wanted him to have the afternoon where someone said his name and meant it. I had spent $3,400 on the catering contract alone, more than my car payment. More than 3 months of the child support Griffin liked to quote in public. Every dollar came from commissions I earned sitting in conference rooms explaining coverage gaps to business owners. I knew exactly what this party cost, and I knew exactly what it was worth. By 11, the first round of pizzas was coming out. Marco was handing Kai a small ball of dough to stretch himself when Griffin arrived. My brother walked in carrying nothing. No gift, no card, no bag. Peyton was holding a smoothie from a drive-thru and scanning the pavilion like she had been told to be unimpressed. She was 10. She did what 10-year-olds do when their parents have already narrated the world for them. My mother, Fern, came 20 minutes later. She hugged Kai, handed him an envelope with a 20 inside, and looked at the oven, the setup. The 11 families filling paper plates. She leaned toward Griffin and said loud enough for 3 people to hear, "All this for a Tuesday kid." Kai was born on a Tuesday. Fern has never let that go. Griffin laughed loud enough for the family at the next picnic table to look over. He wanted the sound to carry. She spent $3,000 on a rented oven for a kid who would rather sit in his room. It was $3,400, I said, and he picked the menu himself. Griffin waved his hand like I had confirmed something pathetic. If you are new to this channel, welcome to Betrayal Unfolded. Stay with this one. What happens at this birthday party was designed, and what I found out afterward changed everything. I was at the drink cooler refilling lemonade cups when it happened. I heard Marco shout, not a word, a sound. The sound a man makes when something he cares about gets hurt. I turned and saw the oven smoking wrong. Not wood smoke, something sharp and gritty. Marco had already pulled the cooking stone out. It was covered. Sand in the firebox, sand in the cooking chamber, sand packed against the interior walls where the fire brick had been holding at 600 degrees. Peyton was standing 4 feet away, holding an empty yellow plastic bucket from the playground sandbox 30 yards from the pavilion. And she was smiling. Marco shut off the gas feed and stepped back. He stood in front of his oven for 5 seconds without moving. Then he looked at me, and his voice came out flat and careful. I have to shut service down. Sand in the firebox and the cooking chamber. Until the oven cools and a technician inspects the fire brick, I cannot serve food from it. I am sorry, Simone. 32 kids. 11 families. 6 trays of prepped dough. 4 bowls of sauce. The oven was the party. Without it, there was nothing. Within 18 minutes, all 11 families had gone. The dough sat untouched in the trays, the sauce bowls full, and 32 children left the pavilion without eating a single pizza. Kai was standing behind me. He did not cry. He does not cry in front of people. He went still, the way he goes still when something too big is happening and he is trying to figure out where to put himself. His hand found the back of my jacket. I felt his fingers close around the fabric. I looked at Peyton. Why did you do that? She did not hesitate. Dad promised me a new e-bike if I killed the party. She said it the way you answer a question on a worksheet. Simple, no shame. $1,200 for an e-bike. That is what Griffin offered his 10-year-old daughter to destroy her cousin's 7th birthday party. $1,200 against $3,400 of catering and 8 months of my savings and a 7-year-old's paper chain and every family who showed up believing something good was going to happen. Griffin put his hand on Peyton's shoulder, proud, like she had won something. And then he opened his mouth. He looked at me, looked at the dead oven, looked at the last few parents still gathering their things, and he delivered the line that I will carry in my chest for the rest of my life. $3,400 on a pizza party. Your ex sends $448 a month. And you spent 8 months of that on one Saturday afternoon for a kid who cannot name 3 friends at his own school. You want to know why Peyton did it? Because I asked her to. Somebody had to pop this little stage you built out here. You write insurance policies for people who actually own things worth protecting. What have you got, Simone? A rented oven, a 7-year-old who will not look a grown man in the eye, and a commission check that clears if you are lucky. That is not a party. That is a show for people who feel sorry for you. A woman loading her kids into a minivan stopped and stared. A father holding his toddler turned and walked toward the parking lot without saying goodbye. Marco stood behind his oven with his hands at his sides and his jaw set so tight the muscle jumped in his cheek. Fern adjusted her sunglasses and said nothing. She had watched Peyton walk to the playground sandbox. She had watched her fill the bucket. She had watched her walk toward the oven. And she had looked the other way. I almost said every word I had been holding behind my teeth for 15 years. Every holiday where Griffin sat at the head of the table while I sat at the folding extension. Every time Fern told me to be grateful I had a job while she bragged about Griffin's title. Every check I wrote so Fern could keep her house while Griffin leased a new truck every 30 months. The words were loaded, and my jaw was already opening. But Kai's fingers tightened on my jacket. His hand, the same hand that had pressed into the clay 6 days ago, held me still. I closed my mouth. I picked up the clay pizza stone from the prep table where I had set it that morning, Kai's handprint facing up. As I reached for it, Peyton's swinging bucket knocked it off the edge. It hit the concrete pad and cracked in two. I knelt, picked up both halves, put them in my jacket pocket, took Kai's hand, and walked across the parking lot to my car. I drove him home in silence. He went straight to his room, climbed into bed fully dressed, shoes still on, and pulled the covers up to his chin. Kai, he did not look at me. The party was real, I said. Every part of it that we planned was real. Then why did he break it? I sat on the edge of his bed. I unlaced his shoes one at a time and set them on the floor. Because he wanted something that had nothing to do with you, and he used your party to get it. He said, I do not have friends. You invited 11 families. 32 people came because you asked them to. They left hungry. They left because of what Griffin did, not because of you. He rolled toward the wall. I stayed on the edge of his bed until his breathing slowed. Then I pulled his shoes out of the way, turned off the light, and sat in the hallway with my back against the wall for 40 minutes before I moved. He pulled the last paper chain link off his wall the next morning and dropped it in the trash without a word. By 7:42 Sunday morning, Marco was standing outside Griffin's front door. I was parked at the curb in my car. Marco had called me at 6:30, told me a service technician came out Saturday evening and found sand fused into the porous cooking surface and packed behind the burner assembly. The repair estimate exceeded the oven's current replacement value. Total loss. Marco had printed a single invoice, equipment damage and event loss, $11,600. The upper right corner was brown and curled from where it had rested on the oven's steel shelf during the cool down. He asked if I wanted to come. I said I would drive. Griffin opened the door in gym shorts holding a coffee mug. Marco held up the invoice in his left hand and his phone in his right. What is this? Griffin said. $11,600, Marco said. Your daughter destroyed my oven. This is the itemized damage. Griffin looked at the invoice, looked at Marco, and laughed. It was sand, man. Kids play in sand. Take it up with your insurance. Marco tapped his phone screen and held it up. 14 seconds of GoPro footage. Griffin filling the bucket at the playground sandbox. Griffin handing it to Peyton. Griffin pointing at the oven. Peyton walking toward it. The timestamp in the corner, 11:47 a.m. Griffin's laugh stopped. From the curb, I could see his face change. The smile left first, then the color. His eyes went from the screen to Marco's face and stayed there. That is not a kid playing, Marco said. That is you loading a bucket and pointing your daughter at my equipment. I have the original file. My attorney will have a copy by Tuesday. Griffin shifted his weight. He looked past Marco toward the street and saw my car. He saw me in the driver's seat watching. He looked away. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out 5 folded $100 bills. He held them out like he was tipping a valet. Here, $500. That should cover the trouble. Marco looked at the bills. $500 for a 9-year-old oven that I built my business on. My daughter learned to make dough on that oven. He pushed the bills back toward Griffin's chest. You are going to hear from my attorney. Griffin called after him as Marco walked down the driveway. You are really going to sue somebody over a sandbox? Marco did not answer. He got in my passenger seat, closed the door, and handed me the flash drive with the video. Use it however you need, he said. I have been catering for 9 years. I have seen kids break things at every party. I have never seen a father load a bucket and aim his own daughter at my equipment. That night, after Kai was asleep, I opened my homeowner's insurance portal. I was not looking for anything specific. I wanted to review my own coverage in case Griffin tried to claim I was liable for Marco's equipment as the event host. It is the kind of thing my brain does automatically after 9 years of underwriting. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee going cold next to my laptop and logged in expecting a clean claims history on a policy I had never used. What I found had nothing to do with the birthday party. 3 claims, filed on my policy, under my address, none of them mine. I read them 3 times, line by line, the way I read any claims file at work. My coffee went cold. The clock on the microwave changed from 11 to midnight and I did not move from the table. Claim 1, fence damage, October 2023. Filed October 14, payout $7,200. Claim 2, shed flooding, March 2024. Filed March 8, payout $8,800. Claim 3, patio crack, September 2024. Filed September 19, payout $6,400. Total, $22,400 paid out on a policy I pay $2,100 a year for. I had never filed a single one of them. My fence was standing in October 2023. I have photos of Kai in the yard that month with every panel intact in the background. My shed has never flooded. My patio did not crack. None of these events happened. But someone had described them in detail, submitted documentation, and collected the payouts. Someone had done this 3 times in 2 years, and I had never received a single notice. I requested my full claims history and endorsement records. The file arrived Friday. Attached to my policy was an additional insured endorsement listing Griffin Ashby as a named party. The signature line read Simone Ashby. The handwriting was close, but it was not mine. I recognized the source immediately. The curve of the S, the way the A leaned left. It had been traced from a notarized power of attorney I signed in August 2022 when Fern had knee surgery. Griffin had a copy of that form. The carrier log showed more. The claims contact email had been changed to an address Griffin controlled. All 3 claims had been submitted digitally with staged photographs and altered contractor invoices. Electronic payment instructions routed the payouts to an account in his name. That is why I never received adjuster notices, damage inspections, or payout confirmations. Griffin had built a complete parallel identity on my policy. I almost drove to Griffin's house that night. My keys were in my hand and my car was running in the driveway. But the claims file was still open on my laptop, and if I confronted him now, he would have time to cover his trail. So I turned the engine off, went back inside, and opened a new browser tab. If you have been watching Betrayal Unfolded for a while, you know this is where the story shifts. But this one goes further than you think. I cross-referenced the payout dates with what I knew about Griffin's spending. Each payout landed shortly before Griffin displayed another expensive purchase. The October 2023 money arrived 10 days before Peyton's travel softball trip to Savannah, the one Griffin posted 17 photos of. The March 2024 money arrived 2 weeks before his kitchen renovation started. The renovation he told Fern he had been saving for. The September 2024 money landed the same week as Peyton's private school tuition deposit, the deposit he wrote in a single check. I could see the timing. I could see the pattern. But I could not yet prove that the payout funds had directly gone to those specific purchases. The timing was enough to know. The proof would come later. Monday morning, I submitted a formal fraud complaint to my insurance carrier and asked that the file be referred to its Special Investigations Unit. I attached the 3 claim summaries, the forged endorsement, the original PO, a signature for comparison, the carrier log showing the changed contact information, and the 14-second GoPro video. Then I filed a police report for forgery and insurance fraud. Case number 2025 if 3371. Tuesday, Marco's attorney filed a civil suit against Griffin for intentional destruction of commercial equipment and lost revenue. The technician's replacement estimate for the oven, the refunded $3,400 catering contract, and $4,200 in documented net profit lost from 3 bookings Marco could not serve with a destroyed oven. Total, $15,800. The CU opened its investigation within 2 weeks. Griffin denied everything. He said the endorsement was legitimate and the claims were real. The investigator asked for documentation supporting all 3 incidents. Griffin provided none. Meanwhile, something Griffin had been counting on not happening was already in motion. Hargrove Logistics, where Griffin worked as operations manager, had a scheduled internal audit set for July. Griffin had known about it for months. What he had not known was that the auditors would start their preliminary review 3 weeks early. The audit flagged altered receipts and duplicate mileage claims going back 2 years. Client dinners that never happened. Equipment purchases that existed only on doctored invoices. The total, $31,000 in fabricated expenses. When compliance questioned Griffin, he could not produce a single original receipt. The company referred the matter to its own legal counsel. The insurance investigation and the workplace audit moved on separate tracks, but both pointed at the same man. And here is what made everything click. The dates matched. Each insurance payout had landed within days of a corresponding gap in Griffin's expense reports. The October 2023 payout arrived 9 days before Griffin submitted a reimbursement for a fabricated client dinner that covered the same dollar amount. The March 2024 payout arrived the week before he filed a mileage claim for trips he never took. He had been using my policy to generate cash, then submitting expense claims for the same amount, creating 2 records that canceled each other out inside his own books. My insurance payouts were not income. They were plugs. Every forged claim was designed to cover one specific audit gap. The birthday party sabotage was supposed to be attempt number 4. Griffin had planned to impersonate me again through the compromised digital access on my policy and file a personal liability claim for damage to Marco's equipment at an event I hosted. He believed he could route the payout the same way he had routed the first 3. He needed approximately $8,400 to cover the last audit gap before the July review closed. He did not destroy Kai's birthday because he hated his nephew. He did not use his daughter as a weapon because he found it funny. He did it because he was 6 weeks from being caught at work, and he needed my insurance policy to save him one more time. The contempt was real. The cruelty to Kai was real. But the engine was a cornered man burning everything around him to keep from going under. There was one more layer. The $8,800 shed flooding claim was not paid out to Griffin's address. The check was mailed to Fern's house. Fern endorsed the back of that check and deposited it into Griffin's account when I drove to her house and placed the bank image on her kitchen table. She stared at it for a long time. He told me it was a refund from your policy, she said. Something about an overpayment. A refund for shed flooding that never happened, I said. At my address, deposited into his account. You endorsed the check, Mom. $8,800. He said the insurance company owed you money and it was easier to process through my address. And you believed that. He is my son. Why would I question him? Because you watched Peyton fill the bucket at the playground. You watched her walk toward the oven, and you looked the other way. That is what you do, Mom. You endorsed a check you chose not to understand for a son who has been forging my name for 2 years, and you did not ask a single question. Fern picked up the bank image, turned it over, set it back down. Her hands were shaking. She opened her mouth, closed it, and then said, "What happens to him now? That is not my problem anymore. He is your brother. He forged my name. He stole $22,400 from my policy. He embezzled $31,000 from his employer, and he used his daughter to try to manufacture the next claim at my son's birthday party. I am not filing a separate report on you. The Sioux has the bank record. Your signature is on the back of that check. That is enough." Fern sat with her hands flat on the table. She did not ask another question. Saturday morning, 3 weeks after the birthday party, Marco texted Griffin, "Come settle the invoice or I file Monday." Griffin thought it was a negotiation. He drove to Marco's commissary kitchen on Elm Industrial, parked his truck, and walked in expecting to talk a caterer down to half. I was already there, standing behind the stainless steel prep counter. The damaged oven sat against the far wall, its firebox still holding sand that Marco had preserved for the civil suit. Griffin walked in, saw me, stopped. His face rearranged itself 3 times in 2 seconds. Confidence, then confusion, then something tighter. "What is this?" he said. Marco picked up a tablet propped against the oven and pressed play. 14 seconds. Griffin filling the bucket. Griffin pointing. Peyton walking. Griffin watched without blinking. Then he exhaled. Kids play. It was sand. I laid 3 printed claim summaries on the counter, one at a time. Fence, shed, patio. I said nothing. Griffin's eyes moved from one page to the next. His right hand went to the counter edge and gripped it. His knuckles went white. I laid the forged endorsement form next to the claims. My trace signature beside the original from Fern's surgery POA. "That form was for Mom's surgery," Griffin said. His voice had changed. "Tighter, faster, you signed it yourself. That form was a medical power of attorney. This is an insurance endorsement. I write these for a living, Griffin. The signature structure does not even match the form type." Griffin looked at Marco. "This is between me and my sister." Marco crossed his arms. "You destroyed my oven. You owe me $15,800. This is between all 3 of us." Griffin turned back to me. "Where did you even get these?" "My own insurance portal. My own policy. The one you hijacked. You changed the claim's contact email. You submitted staged photos. You routed payments to your own account. I never received a single adjuster notice because you built a parallel identity on my coverage." The room was quiet except for the hum of the commissary cooler. I almost let the silence carry the rest. The documents were loud enough. The video was loud enough. But Kai's cracked pizza stone was in my pocket, both halves pressing against my hip, and I thought about his paper chain and the 32 kids who left the pavilion hungry. So I said it all. $22,400 in forged claims on my homeowner's policy. 3 fabricated events at my address, submitted with staged photos and altered invoices through a claims account you hijacked. A traced signature from a medical document I signed so Mom could get through knee surgery. You used that to add yourself to my policy, and you collected 3 payouts in 2 years. And when you needed one more to plug the last gap in your expense reports before Hargrove's audit, you coached your 10-year-old daughter to destroy a caterer's oven at your nephew's birthday party so you could file a 4th claim. That is forgery. That is insurance fraud. That is embezzlement. The sue file is open. The police report is filed. Case number 2025 if 3371. Marco's attorney already has the civil suit on record. Griffin's chin dropped, came back up, dropped again. Then he started bargaining. "I will pay Marco back. The full amount. Every dollar." Marco said, "You offered me $500 at your front door and called it more than fair. That was before I understood the situation. The situation is you used your daughter to destroy my equipment." My attorney filed Tuesday. Griffin turned to me. "Mom did not know about any of it. Leave her out of this. She endorsed the check. $8,800. The bank has the image." "Simone, you are going to put your own brother in prison over an insurance policy? You forged my name on an insurance endorsement. You stole $22,400. You embezzled from your employer. And you used your 10-year-old daughter to manufacture the next claim at my son's birthday party. This is not an insurance policy, Griffin. Just give me 60 days. I can fix this. I can settle with Hargrove. You had 2 years to stop. You filed 3 claims and were preparing a 4th. 60 days is a delay, not a plan." Marco walked forward until he was standing beside me. I do not negotiate with people who use their kids as tools. Your 60 days ended when you handed a 10-year-old a bucket of sand and pointed at my oven. I said it, flat, looking at his hands, which were trembling on the counter edge. You called it a show. 22,000 in forged claims on my policy. The only performance in this family was yours, and the insurer has the file. Griffin's shoulders dropped. His head followed. His jaw worked, but nothing came out. The color pulled from his face, draining from the cheeks down. He looked at the damaged oven against the wall, the sand still in the firebox, and his eyes stayed there. This is the last time I cover anything with your name near it. The last check. The last signature. The last time I pick up the phone when you need something funded, co-signed, or overlooked. The Sue has your file. Marco has an attorney. The police have a case number. We are done. I reached into my pocket and set both halves of Kai's clay pizza stone on the counter next to the claim printouts, his cracked handprint sitting beside the forged signature. I did not explain it. I walked out. You said I write policies for people who actually own things worth protecting. You were right. The first thing I protected was my own policy from the person who forged his way onto it. The kitchen you called a show fed 32 kids for 3 hours before your daughter killed it. The kid you said could not name 3 friends? He named 11 families on the invitation list and wrote every address by hand because I told him that is how you show people they matter. And the commission check you said clears if I am lucky? It cleared every month for 9 years. It paid for every policy I wrote, every coverage gap I explained, every claim I reviewed, including yours. 3 weeks later, Griffin called. His voice was thin and shaking. He said he had been having chest pains since the investigator contacted him. He said if I did not withdraw the fraud complaint, it would kill him, and Peyton would grow up without a father. I said, you called it a show. 22,000 in forged claims on my policy. The only performance in this family was yours, and the insurer has the file. Then I hung up. Hargrove Logistics terminated Griffin on July 18. Compliance confirmed $31,000 in padded expense reports. HR called him to a conference room at 9. 2 people were waiting, the HR director and the head of compliance. The meeting lasted 11 minutes. They read the findings. Griffin said, "There has been a misunderstanding." The HR director said, "The receipts you submitted do not correspond to any vendor transactions in our system. We have confirmed this with 6 separate vendors. His badge was collected at the door. His laptop was boxed and sealed. No severance." The company documented the termination as misconduct and said it would contest any unemployment claim. He walked to the parking lot carrying 1 banker's box with a framed photo of Peyton on top. He sat in the driver's seat for 4 minutes before starting the engine and drove home to an empty house at 11 in the morning on a Friday. If you have been following Betrayal Unfolded, you know the pattern by now. But the fallout on this one reached places I did not expect. Griffin's coworker Danny had co-signed 2 of the fabricated expense reports without reading them carefully. After the termination, Griffin texted him, "I just need you to tell them you saw the receipts. That is all." Danny read the message at his desk. He looked at the compliance officer's door down the hall. He typed, "Griffin, I cannot get involved in this." Deleted it. Typed, "Call me tonight." Deleted that too. He locked his phone and went back to work. He never responded. 3 weeks later, Griffin's calls to Danny went to a disconnected number. Late August. Griffin sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open to a job board. He filled out an application for a warehouse operations manager position. Name, address, employment history. 10 years at Hargrove, ending in a termination for misconduct. He typed it, read it, deleted it, typed it again, left it. He got to the background check authorization and his cursor hovered over the checkbox. He stared at it. 2 minutes. He closed the laptop, opened it, stared at the same checkbox, closed it again, pushed the chair back, walked to the fridge, opened it, looked at the shelves, took nothing out, closed it, sat back down. The laptop stayed closed. The application stayed unfinished. He sat at that table until the light through the window changed. September, Kai's school held a fall harvest festival. I was working the face painting booth. 3 of the 11 birthday party families were there. Griffin showed up with Peyton at 4. A father from the birthday party, standing near the bake sale table, looked at Griffin and said loud enough for the treasurer and 2 teachers to hear, "My daughter still asks why she did not get pizza at Kai's party." I told her what happened. I told my wife. She told the other parents. "You should probably find a different school event, Griffin." Griffin stared at him. It was a kid's thing. It got blown out of proportion. "Your daughter poured sand into a commercial oven because you told her to," the father said. "That is what you taught her to do." A mother from another party family, holding a cup of cider 6 feet away, shook her head slowly and walked her children to the other side of the gymnasium without a word. The treasurer stared at her clipboard. A teacher near the book fair turned and walked inside. Peyton whispered, "Dad, can we go?" Griffin took her hand, walked her across the parking lot, and did not come to another school event that semester. Fern stopped calling me after the kitchen table conversation. She stopped calling Griffin, too. By October, she was eating dinner alone 4 nights a week. She cooked for 1. She set 1 plate. She washed 1 fork. The phone rang once on a Wednesday evening. Griffin, she let it go to voicemail. She did not listen to it that night or the next. Every time her phone buzzed, she thought about the back of that check and the pen she used to sign it and the question she chose not to ask. On Thanksgiving, she set the table for 3, herself, Griffin, and Peyton. She put out the good plates, the ones she used every year. Peyton was with her mother that week. Griffin did not come. He did not call to say he was not coming. Fern ate alone at a table set for 3, cleared the untouched plates, and washed 2 clean dishes before putting them away. Griffin moved into a 1-bedroom apartment by late October. He could not make the mortgage payments without a paycheck, and nobody was co-signing anything for him now. Peyton's weekend bag sat by the front door from last Sunday, still unopened. Her softball gear was in a bin in the closet of the old house, which was listed for sale. The e-bike he had promised her for killing the party was never bought. $1,200. He had offered his daughter $1,200 to destroy a 7-year-old's birthday, and he did not even have the money to pay it. The e-bike had never been real, just a word he used to aim his daughter at an oven and call it parenting. My backyard. A Saturday in October. The air has turned cool, and the maple leaves are starting to drop. A new pizza oven sits on the patio, smaller than Marco's, personal-sized. I bought it myself after the carrier corrected my claims history and confirmed the fraud would not remain attributed to my record. Marco sent me a card the week before, his family's pizza dough recipe written on the back in his mother's handwriting. Blue ink on a recipe card with tomato stains in the corner, photocopied exactly as it was. It is taped to the kitchen window where the morning light hits it, underneath the recipe in Marco's handwriting for Kai's kitchen. Kai pressed his hand into new clay that Saturday morning. I held his wrist the same way I had held it 7 days before the party. He spread his fingers, held still, and counted to 5 himself this time. His handprint at 7 is wider than the one he made at 6, deeper on the thumb side, just like before, but bigger. The old broken stone is in my desk drawer. I did not throw it away. I did not try to glue it back together. It sits in the dark, cracked, holding the shape of the hand he had before that Saturday. Some things you keep not because they are whole, but because they prove that what broke was real and what came after was earned. The new stone sits on the shelf above the oven, his handprint at 7. clean, wider. His first pizza came out slightly burned on the bottom and perfect on top. He ate it standing up in the grass, holding the plate with both hands, and he did not look at his shoes once.